How's it going, everyone?
Oh,
Whoop.
thank you.
So my name is Mauricio, also known as Bunny, and the co-founder CEO of Search and Dora. We have a wonderful panel here on the anthropology of Be Anon, Anthropology 404. We're welcomed by some amazing people here. Would you like to introduce yourselves first?
I'm Maria Paula. I work at Lens. You just heard my talk. Uh, Lens, Ave, and a family. Vara.
Hi everyone, I'm Roisin, Head of People and Talent at Nillion Network.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Liz. I'm the head of growth at Azuki.
For the people that do not know what a non-anthropology will be about or what it is, we'll just be discussing about what it takes to be an anonymous person in crypto, where are we on the full spectrum from being fully anon to fully doxxed. And yeah, just tell us a little bit more about yourselves and what led you to fall somewhere in this dynamic of being anonymous online and on-chain.
I'm unfortunately fully doxxed. I started in 2017, and I've been thinking all of these years that it would have been better if I was an anon. But in 2017, when I started, it was the ICO fever, and if you were an anon, then you were sort of scammy. So the circumstances of that time meant that you had to show your credentials and you had to show who you are. And then I just stayed. But yeah, come 2024, the kind of systems that we have and the kind of, the social capital that anons also have and the freedom that they can enjoy, I would 100% have become an anon.
Yeah, so I guess the idea of an anonymity, I had to learn how to say this word during the week. I was like, oh, yeah, the concept is really interesting to me, especially as head of people and talent at Nillion. I came from a Web 2 background, so it was always thinking about anons as these people that wore masks, right? I never thought about anons coming into the workplace or having to onboard them. And it was a really interesting concept that someone on my team had flagged with me in my early stages. So I've been with Nillion about 3 years now. The first time that someone said, oh, we'll probably have to onboard an anon person to the team at some point, I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to work, right? Because for me, it's the connection piece and the trust that you have to think about in a business setting. But personally, since learning about it, and I'd like to put this one out to the audience as well, like who here has ever thought about being anon or having that freedom to be able to post and speak your ideas freely? Can I get a show of hands?
How many people in the audience are fully anon? One person, okay, that they just dox themselves as being anon. How many of the people in the audience are pseudo-anonymous? Like you post yourself online, but you don't say your name, let's say. No one. Are most people in the audience just fully dogs or like very open out there? Yes? Okay.
Yeah, so it's something I definitely thought about, but in my role, I find it's kind of difficult to do that. But there are many reasons why I would love to do that online as well, because I have lots of things and opinions that I would love to share as well. So it's kind of balancing, I guess. And it's a different level, right?
So to paraphrase Oscar Wilde, if you want to see how someone really is, give them a mask. And I think there's this false dichotomy that's often set up in our space between, anonymity and that breeding distrust. But if you think about how we are, even those of us who are fully doxed, you are not the same person in every situation, right? Like how you are with your family, how you are with your significant other, how you are with your colleagues. These are all different aspects of your identity. And identity is more prismatic than it is, all encompassing. And, I have a lot to share on that subject, but yeah, I personally, I'm fully doxxed. I go by a pseudonym. There's a lot of things that I find actually quite liberating about using a pseudonym, even though, people can find my full name, my details like that if they just look. But yeah, interesting. Definitely a lot of interesting things there to unpack.
So just hopping on from that, where do you find power in your pseudo-anonymity? What actually makes you, what type of confidence does it enable you to engage on?
I'm not pseudonymous.
No,
But I guess,
from
you know,
the ecosystem.
I think working with pseudonymous people and also dealing with completely anonymous people, I found that there is, and I met a lot of them, RL, and, they reach out to me as well on DMs and we talk. I think there's a special moment when a person chooses to trust you by revealing their self. And I'm not saying that, they're going to say, hey, I'm Maria Paula. They're going to show up. They're going to start talking to you. They're going to share their talents with you. And I think that moment and that trust, that sort of trusted connection is much more visible when you're dealing with anonymous or anonymous people. And we take it for granted in this space as well, which is amazing because other spaces, like you said, Roisin, wouldn't even think of these people.
Yeah, so fully doxed myself, but I have obviously had the experience of working with some anons and at Nillian. And for me, I can see that for them, or at least for who I've encountered, it's either like privacy online, so externally, which is fine. But then there's also like a safety element for some people, right? Which I like to respect as well. But there's a balance, and I think we spoke about that in terms of the levels. When you come internally into a business, I think that you can open up and you should be able to open up and trust the business a little bit more to know who you are. And probably extreme cases where that is not the case. If we think about Satoshi, I don't know if anyone, I would love to know if anyone is in the know, did people on his team or their team. So yeah, the other side of it as well for me is like the identity and freedom of speech. And I think for me, if I was to be anon, that's where I would thrive because I have this like backlog of Twitter posts that I have in drafts that I've never posted because what if that person thinks about this, or what if I'm seen as something? So the social constructs. And then one other point that I love is the lack of biases. So on my crypto Twitter feed, when I see anons, I don't know who they are, right? And I see these interesting concepts, I engage, I don't know who these people are, so I don't instantly think anything of them, except, oh, I like that picture. Oh, that's a fun picture.
So I go by a pseudonym, although I'm fully doxxed. I go by Whizwhang on Twitter, and I think that there's something incredibly powerful about using a pseudonym. It's like I work in the anime space, so it's that feeling when a cosplayer dons on their cosplay and they feel like they have a superpower. It's the feeling that a drag queen has when they put on their drag and they've stepped into this alternate kind of identity. And I think in a space that can be very challenging at times. I see using a pseudonym as a form of, reclaiming your identity, reclaiming your femininity, reclaiming power, and it's something that has, I think, really worked out in my favor.
Sure. So there's a lot of pros to being anon. I think that we can all agree that even if we're fully doxxed, there's also a lot of power on putting our full trust that everyone around us in our community will be able to respect us and continue elevating us. What are some of the downsides that you've noticed, either working with anonymous people, being pseudonym, or not being fully or being also the converse of that, being fully doxxed, being fully out there present at all times?
There's a few challenges. Some of them are funny to some people, and some I found it really, really hilarious when several teams have been working with hackers from North Korea for a very long time that were like calling themselves John Smith. They were just pretending for years. Of course, that has geopolitical implications that I don't even want to think about. I just want to think of the meme that does for like. One of the things that I would say about that is that obviously it does increase distrust in Anon people, but at the same time, like this industry was created by an Anon. So I think that, that distrust shouldn't exist, more like there can be other ways to KYC people before they get to work in in a team or or contributors to a project. Another consideration that I would believe it's growing in this space is obviously dealing with Anon people, and here like being a woman. I think given the stuff that happened very recently with that absolute criminal that spiked this girl's drink, I think we need to try to figure out better ways to respect anonymity, but at the same time to ensure safety. Because if that person was an anon, then the problem would be tenfold as well. So it's a nuanced subject. I do think still this industry was created by an anon. We should give them the same personhood as everyone else has, and we are doing a really good job at it. But at the same time, we need to stay safe.
Yeah, I would have a similar thought on that, especially from a workplace perspective. I really, really am passionate about creating a very safe working environment for people. So anon culture is quite scary to me in that sense. And I do think, like when we think about the hackers, I've had numerous screening calls with people that definitely wouldn't be able to verify their identity. So I think that's very important. Another point, though, that I find is really interesting on, like, externally, maybe with crypto Twitter is, like, that Paula account, if anyone remembers. Like, the community would be very quick to report and block, and I think it's a really nice thing that I saw as kind of a newbie in the space, that people weren't, even I think Vitalik had, like, commented about Paula to say, like, this account is horrible, and I haven't seen the account in a long time since, so that's a positive, I think. But also, as I said, a challenge because you have this troll that's really probably targeting people and hurting them as well.
So I think it's important to distinguish a couple of different concepts, anonymity, identity, and reputation, because you can be fully anonymous, but you could still have a reputation in the space, meaning there are repercussions if you were to do something, unsavory with your anonymous identity. Of course, you could just start another account and establish yourself in that way. But I do think there are repercussions for people who are anonymous in this space. To second what Maria Paula had said, I think that this North Korean infiltration is a very insidious threat that we're dealing with in our space. Like my partner actually once interviewed somebody with a very American-sounding name like Alex Benjamin. And after the fact, he's like, oh, they had an accent that I couldn't quite place. I was like, they were probably North Korean. And there's so many examples you see on Twitter of, trying to get them to say, fuck Kim Jong-un, and they won't do it, which actually should maybe be a part of your hiring process to weed out the North Koreans, because they literally will not do it. But yeah, in terms of anonymity, I think that, for the downsides there might exist, I think a lot of what we've outlined as downsides are things that are not necessarily inherent problems with anonymity, but just problems with the human condition, right? Like Twitter actually commissioned a study about anonymity to see if they were to, like theoretically, if they were to, get people to have to use a real identity, would that eliminate online abuse? And they concluded that it didn't, because a lot of people who come out with hate speech on Twitter actually do so under their real identity. And there's many examples you can see of this on Twitter. So yeah.
Yeah, I think anecdotally, I feel like the space goes back and forth on whether or not being anon is an edge, and there's alpha on being anon. Like I remember on our first fundraiser for Dora, it was really bullish somehow to investors that we were a fully anon team. And then the day we were willing to put ourselves forward and say, hey, these are our full names, these are our passports, this is where we work for before, they were like, wow, they really trust us. And then for these most recent change in the market, they were like, oh, they're putting really themselves out there. Like I now can go into space and say, oh, my name is Mauricio. And then they're like, wow, the project's very real, because now we're being a bit more transparent about it. But yeah, speaking on a little bit on the reputation piece, because I feel like on my experience of getting on board, then it was primarily driven by anons into crypto, and also a lot of people that then transition into being a little bit more public due to their success in crypto and wanting to keep on growing their company. Is there anyone in the crypto space who's anonymous or pseudonymous that you will be thankful for in your crypto journey?
Well, Satoshi? No.
Very important.
No, honestly, here's a really good thing that we have in crypto. A lot of these people, they have a .eth, a lot of these people have traceable wallets. So we're building our reputation in an immutable way, whether we're a non or not, through our wallet histories. It will come a time where identity will be able to be integrated as well into your wallet history, and where digital identities will be more flexible than IRL identities now. So I think these anons that we are working with, that we're doing business with, teach us ways on which their identity is not a problem, because as long as they have a reputation that's tethered to their blockchain. And I think that's the real alpha. It's not about the people, it's about the technology that allows you to, have this reputation.
Yeah, I don't think I would specifically call out any anons, but I would say that in general, this entire industry has made at least me personally feel a lot more comfortable with sharing opinions and ideas, which is amazing. I did have another point there, but it's gone from my head, so I'll pass on.
Yeah, in terms of like anonymous people that I'd have to thank, I don't know if there's anyone in particular, but there's certainly a lot of anonymous people that I interact with as part of my job. Actually, funnily enough, one of my friends, she started a company and she hired her CTO who was fully anon. And then when it came time to fundraise, you do have to like dox yourself. It's like a legal liability thing for the funds. And it turned out that her CTO was 18 years old. And so if a normal, fully doxxed 18-year-old is applying for the role of a CTO, they might not, probably the recruiter would toss their resume in the trash because you would just assume they're not qualified. In this case, this person in question was a prodigy and had been a programmer for many years, of course, prior to becoming CTO. But I think it unlocks a lot of opportunities for people in the space being anonymous. And it's probably one of the few industries, maybe the only industry, where you can actually make a career for yourself being fully anon.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of reputation behind being anonymous, and people won't trust you unless you actually get to prove yourself. And it's one of the few ways in which you can get a little bit of a taste of meritocracy to an extent.
I think as well, just to add, I think it'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds within a business environment, especially when we take more, control over our own data. And if that evolves into a workspace where actually it's more transition or transactional based rather than like fostering that trust and collaboration, right? Are we going to move towards an era where we take the personal connections away from the work environment? I personally would not enjoy that because I think that you spend so much time in work. It's nice to get to know the people that you're working with and spending that time with. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing to follow, and I'm excited to see where we go with this.
So I remember at the very beginning of the panel where Paula said that you may have considered being fully anon from the start. What would you tell someone in the audience that is considering on being pseudo-anon, not fully anon, fully doxxed, and why?
As a woman in the space, I would have killed to be anonymous. I can't count the times where I've gotten in trouble on the internet and then I've been labeled difficult to work with. I now, after having like an 8-year career in crypto, I'm just like, whatever, people keep hiring me and I'm doing amazing. But at first it was tough, when I would meet someone and then they were like, oh my God, I'm so glad you didn't post my stuff on Twitter, that you didn't post about me on Twitter. I'm like, I don't post everything about my real life on Twitter. Like, are you insane? First of all, I don't have the time. And secondly, that's not how Twitter works. But they get these weird labels, and I don't know. I don't understand if it's gendered. I don't understand if it's because the way that I express myself online, I don't really get it. But there's always the prevailing idea that I'm gonna report, that I'm gonna just shit post at them. Yeah, that's not how it works. First of all, shit posting is an art. So I don't share my art with everyone. It's my IP. No, but most. So I think I would have killed to be Anon and to do my shit posting because I do love shit posting for the love of God in a more freer way. I also think that, and I was thinking about wallet history. Maybe it's not a really good idea to show wallet history as part of your resume because then you would see the horrors that I do on chain and all the bad trades and all of that. And then I wouldn't be deemed good to work with either. I don't have a perfect solution. I think that a universal identity on chain and the right to be anonymous after you prove, like you can ZK prove the shit out of things. I think that those things should exist. And I would say go for it. The technology is coming really, really fast.
Yeah, definitely echo that. If I could go back in time and I knew that that was a thing, I guess, and that there was a whole community there behind it, I definitely would have kind of dove headfirst into anonymity. And I definitely thought back to my younger years as well when I kind of struggled, I guess, with identity as well. And like in a very low level, I guess, just different kind of friend groups and like, where do I fit in? And it always had me kind of questioning myself. So being able to express yourself freely like that, I think is just amazing.
So in this space, Maria, Paula, and we've known each other for many years, right? So when we first joined the space, there were like no women, like literally, I would go to events, all men, no one wanted to talk to me because they just assume you're stupid or someone's girlfriend. And obviously, things have changed. But that being said, because there still aren't that many women on the balance in the space, there are upsides and there are downsides to being, I think, like publicly doxxed in a space. As Maria Paula alluded to, there are a lot of criticisms and insults and hate mail and things like that women get in the space, especially if you're a public figure, which I think men do not receive on the same level. I personally have gone through this. I'm sure many women in the audience have gone through the same. But I think because there aren't as many women, there's also the opportunity to stand out more from a career perspective. But there are pros and cons. As for, whether or not we should be anonymous or pseudonymous or have an whether or not we should be doxxed or anonymous, I don't think it's actually binary. I think, you can do both. Like many people are doxxed and they have an alt. So, you can live out your best lives on those two different trajectories.
Yeah, I feel like anecdotally, I have some friends that have started projects being fully doxxed. People didn't believe in them, and then when they switched to their anon accounts, then people wanted to fund their projects immediately, which I think is hilarious because I guess like sometimes you don't fit the pedigree of what an investor or other coworkers may want, but as soon as you put your work out there, it very much speaks for itself. Oh, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.